Ergonomics is all to do with how humans interact with products. It's a really key consideration for all designers. Every single product which has ever been made involves humans interacting with it in some way or another. There are three main areas which we need to know about for ergonomics, and we're going to take these one at a time. Let's start first of all with anthropometrics. Anthropometrics is quite a complicated word, but really what it concerns is human body part sizes. So the designer will consider human body part sizes when designing products. If we take, for example, the case of the bicycle, the designer will consider things like leg length, how far it is for the cyclist to be able to reach the pedals, for example. We can change things like the height of the saddle to allow for this. The designer would also consider arm length for a comfortable riding position for the cyclist, and all manner of different body part sizes when designing a bicycle. And this goes for every single product which has ever been invented. So if we take this desk at the bottom left, the height of the desk is adjustable to allow for a comfortable position for the person when using while standing. Similarly, an office chair will be able to be moved up and down, again to provide a comfortable position while seated. In the case of young people, or very young people, it might even be the case that their feet can't touch the ground. So in this case, a stool's been used. A designer might have to consider things like the width of a hand, or the grip size of a hand, perhaps even the length of the fingers. So for example, if we think about the bike again, the levers for the brakes need to be able to be reached by the fingers. So the designer would have to actually find out these sizes in order to design the product which is able to be used and operated safely. Whenever we're talking about anthropometrics, we need to name a body part size, for example, arm length, finger length, hand width, grip size, and then relate it to why it's important. So for example, you could say the designer would need to consider the grip size of an average male hand in order to be able to grip the handles securely and safely in order to operate the bike. Or the designer would need to consider the leg length of the person in order to be able to make sure that they can reach the pedals. So the key thing is, whenever you're discussing anthropometrics, is that you mention specific body part sizes and then relate these to why this is an important consideration. The next part of ergonomics which we're going to talk about is psychology. Psychology is a highly important aspect of ergonomics. Again, remember we're considering how humans interact with products. Well, psychology is all about how a product makes us think or feel. Whenever we see a product, we're going to have a reaction to that product. For example, if we step foot in the cockpit of a plane, the chances are we're going to be overawed by the number of dials, switches and levers and everything else. The plane's not actually telling us how to operate it. Clearly, we'd need to be skilled pilots to do that. Similarly, a red light will say danger, and we would approach that with caution. So whenever we're talking about psychology, it's all about how a product makes us feel. Whenever we're actually answering a question to do with psychology, we need to talk about emotions. So for example, does it make the user feel happy, confident, that, for example, the buggy is not going to collapse whilst their child is in it? Or perhaps the design makes a user feel uneasy. So it's important to actually refer to how the product makes us feel. And remember, a key part of psychology is also, does it actually tell us how to operate the product just by simple design features like lights, switches, and changes of color of these parts, for example. The third and final part of ergonomics, which we're going to discuss in this video, is physiology. Physiology is all to do with the physical action required to operate the product. So anytime a muscle is involved, e.g. lifting, pulling, twisting, flicking, whatever it is that you're doing, physiology is all about how much physical effort it takes to operate that product. When we consider it, physiology is a key part in terms of how humans interact with products, because we physically interact with every single product out there. So for example, in the case of the door, we're pushing, we're pulling. In the case of the umbrella, we're maybe twisting the handle to make the rest of the umbrella pop out. In the case of the plug hole at the top left, again, twisting and pulling. When we get to something like a leaf blower, there's a lot of physical interaction with that product. We're lifting it, we're putting it on our back, and then we're moving the actual hose around to blow the leaves away. Even with something as simple as Bop It, we are flicking, twisting, pushing, and bopping the device itself in order to make the toy work. So if we take these one at a time, twisting, we could talk about how much twisting force is required to operate the umbrella. We could talk about, from an ergonomics view, the anthropometrics of the handle. Is the handle small enough to allow users to hold it? We could talk about back length and the fact that the leaf blower is worn in the back, so therefore it's going to be really important that that is an appropriate size for humans. How much physical effort does it take to move the hose left and right? And how much weight is actually pulling down on the user? How heavy is the thing? We think about the Bop It, we're saying twisting, that's a physiological action. We are interacting with this physically, all the way down to bopping it. So when we discuss physiology, we're really talking about the physical interactions with the products. So that's a quick run through of ergonomics. It's really important that we have a good grasp on ergonomics and the three different factors. You will need to learn the three terms and be comfortable about using them. As a quick recap, ergonomics is all to do with human interactions with the products. Anthropometrics is to do with human body part sizes, and it's important that we mention these sizes in our answers and state why it's important. So for example, the cyclist needs to be able to reach the brake levers to be able to safely stop. So the designer would need to consider finger length. Psychology is all about how a product makes us feel. So again, we see a red light, that might say danger to us. Or a switch being a different color might actually tell us this is how the product is operated. Finally, we had physiology, and physiology is all about the physical effort required to operate the product. Hope you found that useful. See you next time.